Warhammer 40,000 in 3 minutes or less. Episode 8, The Primarch Project. So in previous episodes, we went through what the Emperor is, the Age of Technology, the Age of Strife, and the reunification of Terra and some of the major characters. So now we're going to move into the thing called the Primarch Project. So if you'll recall, back when Jimmy Space was going around conquering Earth, he used genetically modified super soldiers. Well, while he was doing this, right around the 29th millennia, he started a thing called the Primarch Project. He knew that after he was done with Terra, he was going to have to conquer the rest of the solar system and then beyond to get all of the old human colonies back. Well, for that, he was going to need generals. So he used some of his own genetic material and the genetic material of another perpetual, a kind of person who really just can't die, named Erda, to create the genetic material for 20 generals, 20 Primarchs. It was actually 21, but we'll get into that later. Now, the intention was for these guys to be superlative generals, and ultimately each one of them would represent an aspect of the Emperor's temperament or abilities. Well, right about the time that these little test tube guys were mature enough to be actual infants, they disappeared. They got snatched away by a huge warp vortex that chucked them all across the galaxy to different planets. Apparently, their mother, if you will, Erda, caused that because she realized what the Emperor's actual plans were. Side note, at one time the Emperor went to a place called Molech and apparently made a deal with the Chaos Gods or stole something from them and got a bunch of power. And he used a lot of the knowledge he got from that, from the warp, to create the Primarchs. So they were imbued with warp energy and a little bit of evil, which will come into play later, and I'll explain all of that. Well, E-Money lost all of his kids, so he shrugged and used the DNA samples he took from each of them while they were gestating and used them to create the genetic pattern for what would become known as the Legiones Astartes, the very early examples of the Space Marines, the very first legions. And it would be those legions that he would use to begin conquering the galaxy on what would become known as the Great Crusade. Now, E-Dog knew that all of his kids were still alive because he was psychically connected to them, but he just couldn't reach them. So as the crusade progressed, he would eventually find each and every one of them on their own planets. And I'm going to get into the story of each and every one of them in the next 20 episodes. Yeah, it's going to take that long. Just remember, when it comes to 40K, don't think about it too much, and if the physics don't make sense, that's perfectly fine. Props to history.